Right, now we are going to try and attempt to draw this using isometric projection and actually draw it open and an actual size. So the first thing you need is a sheet of isometric paper, a clean piece of paper that you can see through. I'm actually using a light box here, so I do apologise in advance for any interference, but you can use your own screen as a light box, and you can also use a window. It's really quite straightforward. So I'm sorry if you're getting what I can see in my viewfinder, which is these weird stripes. So let's give it a go. Now, yes, I have of course drawn it by hand to practice, but I want to show you just how simple this can be. Okay, so I have here my measurements. I shouldn't be frightened of those. I know that these are 10 millimeters, so I can adjust for odd measurements like that. So I know the length is 243, I know the width is 69, and I know the height of 37. And even just by placing this on my board, I know that I can get it on an A3 sheet of paper, but I might run out of grid. So the best thing to do is to use your just visualize how it's going to fit on your sheet and pick a line, and this is what I've done. I've sketched in what I know is there, and because I'm not sure of the lid yet, I started with what I did know, which was the outer box, and it really couldn't be simpler with isometric because it does most of the work for you. So here goes my longest line that I know I'll be able to see, and this is the height of the box. Hope that's still visible. Just about. Okay. Make sure it's held down and doesn't move away. Now here is where the advantage of isometric paper really helps. By just moving it slightly but making sure you haven't deviated from your line, you can add new lines. So this is not really aligned with anything, but I know that's correct, so I can just slide it down until I know I've got the correct line. In goes the other edge. And I've gone off the isometric grid, but there's enough of the lines to know that I've got it correct. So I've had a good look at this, and I know that I'll be able to see the interior at the back. So I just need to decide how far I want this to slide out. So I've made my decision, and here is the top of the box. And all I need is enough showing so that it's clear how it slides in. And if you find, I have no idea, do one of these as a practice. And remember, if you make a model of your item, you have solved all these problems of how all things fit together. So actually it'd be quite easy for you to draw. Now, down the bottom here, I know it comes to a point. I can see it. I can see that if there's a diagonal there, there's going to be a matching diagonal there. So I can do that with ease, and I just put that in. However, be warned, because we are not viewing it directly from above. We are viewing it from the 30-degree angle. So there'll be things that I can see here or here that will not be visible using isometric, so bear that in mind. So here goes, and if I wasn't sure, I just went back to the original item and I measured it, and I now know how the box fits together, and I've measured the dimensions from here to the bottom of the trim, so I can put those in, and it just comes to there. Now I haven't got an edge there to match to. Really simple with isometric paper. Slide it down until you get a line just where you want it. So that was just, the grid is fixed, but I can move this around to get what I want. It could not be easier. And if you get confronted by one of these in an exam, just think, this is easy, I've done this. Now I've done some measurements of the inside of my box, and I know where the groove is cut that acts as a channel for the wood to slide about. I also know that this trim has a depth, and then there's a slight lip where the different colour wood appears. So here is the depth of the trim, and here is the slight lip where the paler wood appears. And because it appears there, it's going to appear there. So again, I just slide my paper till I get a useful edge. And the way to stop things going wrong is, if you're working there and that starts to slide around, you'll see this doesn't match. So whenever you do attempt this, make sure you've got something, in this case this one, where it's staying correct. And before you put down a line, make sure that it's the correct one. So here I have, this is actually decorative, it's the top of the trim there. You just get a slight sliver of it, but this is the key one. That's the edge. Again, slide until you've got it on an actual line beneath the paper, and so on. So that I know what I'm doing, I am going to put the edge of the box in again. Make sure I've gone to a correct position so that it doesn't distort. I've gone slightly off here with my original prep sketch, so I could change that. And I know that is correct for the top of the box. So now I'm confident to put in the grooves that are caused by the routed edge, because that's part of its design. That's a bit of a dog's dinner up here, so make sure I go to the correct one, all the way up to there, and then along the top here to this one. Expect a slight distortion, okay, because you are drawing a different projection. So it will not look exactly the same on both sides. So I hope that you can see what I've drawn. I have drawn the long edge, the back edge, the other long edge. I've drawn what you can actually see inside there, which is how the trim works, how the groove works, and I've chosen a position for where this is going to start. So I can draw that in now. Later on, or you could do it as you go along, just describe what is there. If you're doing this kind of drawing though, you'll be doing it extremely neatly, so you can scan it in. You can use a ruler for your writing. So that's the back of the box. Now the front did give me a bit of headache, but I thought, well, that's what I'm trying to do, so I know that that meets that corner, so that's all I have to do, take it out where those corners meet, and I put in a line there, which means that I can now close off that edge. Just check this is visible to you. Now if you went ahead and drew the whole box and you used your fine liner, you'd have a problem now, wouldn't you? Because what you're doing is something that appears over the top of the box. So here is the base. I did take a measurement of what happens when you do slide it out, what's visible of the edge of the box, so I have that there. And I shaded where the darkness is, what's hidden under there. I measured the thickness of the lid, so I can put that in. And I know it sits on a slightly thicker edge at this end, and all of this I did by just sliding it around till I found an edge. I think I will actually cross hatch that in so I know what I'm trying to represent. So I hope you can see that we're getting close. Now the end did make me sweat a bit, I confess, and it's got loads and loads of guidelines, but by looking at them, looking at the box again, looking at the grid, I was able to work out that all I needed was that line. I need to know where that line meets this edge, is if I could physically slide it along, and I know that this angle is going to match that angle. So I have, and I just thought about it for a long time before I even started, because I didn't want to make any mistakes. And I did have a problem here, and I realized that at this angle you can't see what you know is there, so I stopped trying, and it all became much easier, because all I can see at this angle which I have chosen is that. And this angle matches that angle matches that angle, so all I need to do is clear it up a bit. But remember what we said, this is an isometric projection, so for neatness give yourself a line to write on. So here I'm touching the bottom of the triangles, so it is an isometric projection or drawing. I need some more lines, don't I? Let's hope I don't make a spelling mistake like last time. Of a pencil box with a sliding lid. Now, can you remember the scale? 1:1. So if you're making something that's like this, you now know you can do quite complicated things. Just say what scale you're working at. And the purpose of this projection is to show, well, if I'm teaching good practice, I should do good practice, shouldn't I? So I've got myself some lines here using the grid. Okay, yeah, I can hear you saying, do as you say. So I've using the base of these little triangle things to get myself ready to show and just speak in ordinary language how sliding lid fits into grooves pre-cut, because you can't do it later, in the box interior or inside sides. Got it? So this is the groove. So you could use a slightly different technique here, but remember that tiny bit of trim that shows, so make sure you don't cover it. Because you've identified how this thing actually works. And anything else that you can identify at this stage. That was useful, wasn't it? All of that was where you couldn't see. So here I am doing cross hatching to show where the groove is. And just a little label. Groove, groove, and this is the key. Okay. And then you can add to it as many different things as you know how to explain. So So this, what kind of corner is this? Your 7s from your phone box project. It's a mitre, isn't it? So this is a mitre joint. Okay. It has some kind of trim that has a profile on it, which suggests that it has a routed, because that's the kind of machine that will create it. So uniform, because it's the same on all sides. Routed trim in contrast colour. So if you can remember the proper words, of course, but if you can't, don't worry about it. Okay. You have noticed that there is a different shorter wall here to allow lid to slide, so you can say that. Give yourself a line to write on. So we give this a name, we'll call it front wall. Lowered to allow lid to slide, and so on. Okay. Now, although this is a very simple item, it's extremely well made. I got this box when I was still at university. I'm still using it, and I've dropped it several times and ended up with pieces of the components all over the place. But each time it glues back together. So if you are happy with what you've done, and you have any of these, well, then you can do suggestion of render. Now I know this box is made out of, and you don't have to do the whole thing, okay? Remember the techniques you've been shown. I have made one mistake here. I wonder if anyone spotted it. The trim extends over the side, so I'll put that back in. I've still got the benefit of the isometric paper underneath, so I know exactly where that line is. And little trick here, if you continue along there, because these trims match up, you can check whether you've got the correct position on the end piece, because that is the same. So I'm doing the sliding technique till I get it so it's accurate, and I can replace it here where it has to go. This is a good time to get rid of any things you don't need, make it easier for you to see what you're doing. And I'm not going to colour in the whole thing, partly because it'd take too long and require a lot of memory on my phone. But it's just not necessary. Just enough to show what it is you're doing. Okay, and this matches that. We already know this because we've been studying this carefully. So by continuing that line, you know where that's going to be. Continuing that line, you know where that's going to be, and so on. Okay, so we have got 3mm trim, and when this is closed, they line up perfectly. So I hope that makes sense to you. And yes, I made loads of mistakes, but I made them with very light pencil, so it was not a huge problem. Now, use your pencil like this, and remember to, anything that you're interested in showing how it all fits together, use the same technique. strongly encourage you to use blended colours to try and achieve the effect you're after. And remember which colours you use, so if you need to go back again, you don't have to rummage around in your box. So you've got your equipment all ready to hand, and a sharper pencil gives you a better edge. Just change direction to build up my colour. Don't worry about fancy shadows or anything like that now, not necessary for this job. I'm trying to get to this sort of orangey, very even tone that you get with bamboo. It's a very consistent colour, maybe a bit too red here. But what I'm trying to show is how this rather unusual end fits together. The trim is a different kind of wood. I'm not really sure what it is, can't identify it, but whatever it is that the original designer chose is very robust. As I said, this has broken countless times, and each time just came back together with glue and some clamping perfectly. Now if you wanted to show the sort of what's happening here, you could just allow a little bit of creativity. And the same happens here. So all I'm doing is representing the look of it. This is still the same wood, but the cross grain looks different, so you can actually use your rendering techniques to represent it as looking different if you wish. And of course we've got the same orange-yellow combo for the main lid. So when you do make up your colours, and do take a good set into the exam, won't you? This is absolutely fine. Lots of people take in highlighters because they're thinking, yep, I need those, I'm going to highlight my key points of my exam question. But don't forget these absolutely brilliant, basic, inexpensive tools. Right, I haven't attempted that, but if you're thinking, yes, I could have some sort of decorative feature, I could change the wood here, I could do all sorts of things. So this drawing could be scanned and added to your previous drawing. This could be a completely different page, but obviously this is towards the end of what you're doing because you don't actually need this much detail for early ideas. It would take you too long and it's not necessary. I just spotted a missing line here, which is the corner, and so on. So I hope that helps. Give it a go. This is quite a complicated object, but as I will stress this, don't let the fact that they're difficult in some cases to draw put you off what you're doing, because the creativity comes from your concept and you can present it in whichever way you are confident to do so.